Oh, welcome back, my precious shadows, my shining little stars. They never thought you had it in you, did they? For so long, they mistook your silence for weakness. They mistook your patience for passivity. They thought you were predictable, manageable, easy to read, someone who would always stay in their assigned corner. But here's the thing about people like you. Quiet doesn't mean harmless. Calm doesn't mean powerless. And the day you finally made your move, the day you stepped out of their expectations, you didn't just act. You detonated one action. That's all it took. One decision, one step, one refusal to play small. And suddenly the entire board flipped. The same people who laughed behind your back, they're not laughing now. Their jaws are tight. Their eyes dart. Their whispers sharpen. Because they didn't see this coming. And nothing terrifies people more than realizing they never actually understood you. Understand this, you weren't created for their comfort. You weren't built to be background noise in their story. You were always meant to disrupt, to disturb, to rattle cages and force eyes open. And when that action left its mark, oh, it didn't just inconvenience them. It shook their entire foundation. Because now, they're not just questioning what you did. They're questioning what else you're capable of. And that right there is the shift. The moment power changes hands. Not when you scream, not when you beg, not when you explain yourself. No, power changes hands in silence. When your move leaves them scrambling for explanations. When their certainty collapses into paranoia. They didn't see this coming because they were too busy underestimating you. And that blindness, that's their downfall. And now look at them, the same ones who once rolled their eyes at you, who dismissed you like background static. They can't stop replaying that moment in their heads. That one action, that one strike of clarity, hit them harder than 1,000 speeches ever could. It's rattling around inside their skulls, echoing in the silence they can't escape. You see, people are comfortable when they can predict you. They build boxes in their minds, boxes labeled weak, harmless, predictable, and then they shove you inside, lock it tight, and convince themselves they've figured you out. But what happens when you shatter the box? What happens when the person they thought they had mapped out suddenly flips? The whole script? Their reality fractures. Their confidence collapses. Their world shaken. That's why they're panicking now. Not because you screamed, not because you fought, but because you moved clean, sharp, silent, decisive, and the quiet nature of it all, that's what cuts deepest, because now they can't track you. They can't anticipate you. You've become unpredictable, and unpredictable is dangerous. Think about it. History never remembers the predictable ones. It remembers the disruptors, the ones who moved differently, who acted in ways no one saw coming. The ones who didn't warn the room before setting it on fire. That's you now. You've entered a new territory where your actions speak louder than their entire narratives. So let them scramble. Let them whisper theories about how you pulled it off. Let them burn their energy trying to dissect you like some kind of code. None of it will matter, because the truth is, you're already 3 steps ahead. While they're still trying to process the earthquake, you're already moving like the aftershock, and when the dust settles, they'll finally realize your action wasn't just a move. It was a warning, a signal that the rules of the game have changed forever. Here's where the real damage begins, not outside, but inside their own heads. Because the move you made didn't just shift the board, it cracked their sense of control. And when control slips, fear rushes in. Now every glance they cast at you feels heavier. Every silence feels loaded. They wonder, what else do you know? What else are you planning? What other doors are you about to kick open without warning? And that paranoia, that's the slow poison you left behind. You didn't just shock them, you infected them. You turned their own certainty into suspicion. This is the psychology of disruption. You didn't argue, you didn't explain. You didn't perform for their validation. You acted clean, direct, without hesitation. And when people don't see the punch coming, they don't just feel the pain in their jaw, they start doubting their own ability to defend themselves. That's the part they'll never admit. Your move made them question their own sharpness. Think about it. People fear loss more than anything. And in one move, you made them lose something priceless. their illusion of power over you. You stripped away the story they told themselves about who you were, and now they're standing in the ruins of that story, scrambling for answers, trying to stitch back a narrative that doesn't exist anymore. And the irony? The ones who underestimated you are now the ones overthinking every breath you take. Every quiet step you make feels like thunder to them. They flinch at shadows, second-guessing if it's you moving again. Because once you prove you can shatter their expectations, they never feel safe again. So don't rush, don't explain, don't give them a roadmap. Let them sit in their own unease. Let them wonder if the earthquake was the main event, or just the opening tremor. Because the truth is, they haven't even seen the storm yet. The room is full of them. Your critics, your doubters, the ones who swore they had you figured out. Laughter in the air, smug smiles painted across their faces, glasses clinking like they already won the game. Then boom, your move drops, silent, clean, no announcement, no trumpet sound, just an action so precise that the air itself changes. The laughter fades, the glasses freeze mid-air, eyes widen, throats tighten. They don't even realize they've gone quiet, but the silence is heavy, your silence. That's the beauty of it. You didn't walk in begging for recognition. You didn't even show them your hand. You let the move speak, and now the room feels haunted, not by ghosts, but by the memory of underestimating you. They'll replay it later, again and again, like a crime scene. Who planned this? When did it happen? How did they miss it? The truth? You were never invisible. They just weren't trained to notice the storm before it forms. And now the storm has a face, yours. That's why they can't sleep tonight. That's why the agency, the whispers, the analysts, they're all leaning forward in their chairs, studying you like a classified file. Because one flawless move tells them something they never wanted to believe. If you can do this without effort, what else are you capable of? Understand, this is bigger than just one action. This is the rewriting of your reputation. Behind closed doors, your name is no longer spoken casually. It's studied, it's dissected, it's whispered like a password. Not a joke, not a rumor, a warning. And here's the part they'll never admit out loud. They envy it. They envy the way you pulled off what they couldn't even imagine. They envy the calm in your execution. They envy the fact that you didn't just shake the room. You redefined it. You don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. You already proved it without saying a word. And that's the part that terrifies them the most. Here's what they'll never say in public, but you can feel it in their eyes. The moment you made that move, you didn't just win. You exposed them. You shattered the illusion of control they thought they had. And now, they're scrambling, pretending like nothing happened. But behind those poker faces, the panic is loud. Louder than applause, louder than cheers. Because here's the thing, they spend years training themselves to predict patterns, to read tells, to chart outcomes. And yet, you slipped through. You played a hand they didn't even know existed. They'll go back through the tapes, frame by frame, looking for the glitch, the sign, the crack in your armor that would explain how you pulled it off. They'll zoom in, slow it down, dissect every second, but they won't find it. Because what you did wasn't luck. It was instinct, sharpened into art. And now, the whispers start. Who trained them? Who else knows? Is this person working alone? The questions pile up like classified documents stamped in red ink. They'll open files with your name on them, assign code numbers, put you under the category that few ever touch, unpredictable asset. That's not a compliment. That's a warning label. Understand the psychology here. When someone can't predict you, they can't control you. And when they can't control you, they fear you. That's why agencies, analysts, operatives, whatever name you give them, can't stop circling your file. They don't study you out of curiosity. They study you out of self-defense. Because every move you make tells them something uncomfortable. You're not operating by their script. You're writing your own. And deep down, they respect it. They won't say it, but respect is baked into the fear. Because they know most people break under pressure. Fold when the spotlight burns. Choke when the stakes climb. But you, when the air got thin, when the walls closed in, you didn't just survive. You executed clean, precise, flawless. That's not ordinary. That's legendary in the making. And whether they cheer for you, doubt you, or try to erase you, doesn't matter. The fact remains, they saw it. They felt it, and no matter how much they try to forget, they'll never unsee what you just did. The world has a funny way of reacting to power moves like yours. On the surface, people shrug, laugh it off, pretend they didn't notice. But behind closed doors, the whispers spread faster than wildfire. You've been turned into a story now, passed around in boardrooms, in dimly lit bars, in backseat conversations where voices drop low because your name carries that weight. Think about it. Every era has its ghost stories, the kind parents tell their kids to warn them, the kind leaders mutter about to their advisors when they sense a threat they can't measure. You just became one of those stories, a living riddle, a myth they can't pin down. And here's what makes it burn even deeper. They didn't see it coming. That's the part they can't digest. If you'd been loud, obvious, flashy, they'd feel prepared. But you moved like smoke. No fanfare, no warning, just execution. And that's what rattles their bones, because it forces them to face the question, if you can do this without them noticing, what else can you do? From the outside, you're just another face in the crowd, but inside their walls, your shadow stretches. They'll call meetings. They'll draw maps with your name highlighted. They'll try to link your actions to groups, to networks, to something, anything that explains you. But each time they try to box you in, you'll slip through. And that's why the story grows. Because the unknown is scarier than the obvious. Now here's the irony. They'll admire you even as they fear you. Because somewhere deep inside, they know you represent the thing they lack, freedom. You don't wait for permission. You don't seek validation. You don't follow their carefully laid tracks. You build your own road in silence. And that silence is louder than any speech they could give. And that's why strangers, people you'll never meet, are speaking your name like it's a secret code. You've been stamped in the collective memory. Not because you wanted it, but because you couldn't be ignored. Let's step inside their world for a second. The ones who doubted you. The ones who laughed behind closed doors. They won't admit it publicly, but you're in their heads now. Every time they close their eyes, they replay the moment, the way you moved, the way you executed, the way you left them with nothing but silence and questions. That silence, it haunts them. See, the enemy's greatest weapon isn't force, it's certainty. The certainty that they know you, that they can predict you, that they've already mapped your limits. But you blew that map to pieces. You moved outside their expectations, and in doing so, you broke their rhythm. That's why they're restless. That's why their confidence is cracking. Picture it. They're sitting in rooms with charts, screens, and data, running simulations, desperate to predict your next move. But all the numbers in the world can't calculate instinct. All the algorithms crumble when faced with someone who doesn't play by the rules. That's you, the variable they can't solve, the glitch in their matrix. And here's the cruel part. They'll never admit it to your face. They'll keep the same mask on, the same cold smirk, the same false bravado. But behind that mask, they're rattled because they know when the moment comes again, they'll be staring across at someone who already proved they can't be outplayed. The fear isn't about what you did. The fear is about what you might do next. The unknown, the anticipation. That's the kind of fear that keeps leaders awake at 3 a.m., staring at ceilings, wondering if their whole structure is as fragile as it now feels. And make no mistake, they'll try to flip the narrative. They'll paint you as reckless, lucky, unstable, anything to explain away the truth. But truth doesn't care about labels. Truth has a way of sitting heavy in a room, and every time they say your name, even if it's buried under slander, their tone gives them away. Fear tastes bitter when it's disguised as arrogance. So let them scramble, let them twist, because every move they make to contain you only proves the one thing they'll never say aloud. You've already broken free of their control. Phantoms don't begin with applause. They begin with unease, with that quiet ripple spreading through the room when your name is spoken. That's where you're standing now, not just in their files, not just in their memories, but in the folklore being written in real time. Because when you pulled it off, you did more than change the outcome. You altered the story. Ordinary people, the ones who never saw the battlefield, the boardroom, the chessboard, you became their story. They talk about you the way past generations spoke about shadows in the dark. Did you hear what they did? Nobody's ever done it that clean before. Imagine being on the other side of that, and that's where your myth grows. Not in the big headlines, but in the whispered retellings. The small details exaggerated with every retelling until you're not just a person, you're a force, a storm, a phantom. They don't even need to know your face anymore. The idea of you is powerful enough. This is where the psychology sharpens. People fear what they can't control, but they worship what they can't deny. You've crossed into that rare space where fear and admiration fuse. Your enemies fear you because you're unpredictable. Strangers admire you because you represent what they crave, the courage to act when the world expects silence. And here's the cruel beauty of it. You don't need to remind anyone who you are. The story carries itself. You've become the benchmark, the tale they measure themselves against. Every new move others make will be compared to yours. It was good, but not that level. That's the scar you've left on the timeline. And while they argue, debate, dissect, you don't speak. You don't defend. You don't even confirm. That silence is your sharpest weapon, because in silence, imagination fills the gaps. They don't just wonder what you've done. They wonder what you're planning. And imagination, when it turns toward fear, builds monsters bigger than reality. That's where you are now. Not flesh, not just bone, but myth. A presence that doesn't have to stand in the room to dominate it. A story whispered in corners. A name carried like a warning. A force that shook their world so hard, it won't ever settle the same again. But let's strip the noise away for a second. Forget the whispers, the headlines, the frantic analysts digging through your shadow. This story, the legend they're painting, it wasn't born from them. It was born from you. From the nights you carried yourself through silence. From the mornings you rose with nothing but fire in your chest and steel in your eyes. That's the part they'll never understand. Your transformation didn't start when they noticed you. It started long before, when you were invisible, ignored, underestimated, when no one cared enough to bet on you. That's when you sharpened. That's when the storm was brewing. And now they're stunned because they only see the results, not the scars, not the long road it took to build the version of you that stands here now. You've become cold, not cruel, not careless, but cold in the way diamonds are cold, refined under pressure, hardened past the point of breaking. And that coldness, that's what protects you now. No more begging to be understood. No more chasing validation from the same people who doubted your worth. You don't need their approval anymore. You became your own proof. Understand this. Power doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes in the quiet refusal to bend, in the way you hold your ground when the world tries to shove you back into place, in the way you say nothing, but your silence cuts sharper than any argument. That's the version of you they never accounted for. The one who doesn't flinch, doesn't break, doesn't explain. And here's the twist. They'll try to paint you as the villain. They'll say you've changed, that you've grown cold, that you've become dangerous. And maybe they're right. But what they'll never admit is that they created this version of you. Their doubt, their betrayal, their underestimation. That was the fire. You just learned to forge it into armor. So now you walk differently. Shoulders straighter, eyes calmer. Not because you're unaffected, but because you're unshaken. They can't tell if you're planning your next move or if you've already won. And that uncertainty, that's the true weapon you carry. They'll call you a villain, and maybe that's the sweetest irony of all. Because villains are just the ones who stop playing nice, the ones who refuse to bleed quietly so everyone else can stay comfortable. They wanted you small, silent, obedient. Instead, you stepped into a role they can't categorize. The one who doesn't bow, the one who doesn't explain, the one who doesn't break. And look at how they twist the story. Suddenly your discipline becomes coldness. Your focus becomes ruthlessness. Your silence becomes danger. But the truth, you didn't change. You just stopped lowering your voice so theirs could sound louder. You stopped dimming your fire so their shadows felt safe. That's the essence of the villain mindset they're whispering about. Not cruelty, not malice, clarity. Clarity that not everyone deserves your access. That not every hand reaching for you has earned the right to hold you. That love without respect isn't loyalty, it's slavery. And you burned that contract the moment you chose to stand tall. Here's the part they don't want to admit. Villains, The real ones aren't feared because they destroy. They're feared because they expose. You exposed the lies they built around you. You exposed their weakness when they thought they had control. You exposed the fragility of the systems designed to keep you predictable. And once the curtain rips open, it never closes the same again. Now behind closed doors, the whispers get heavier. Your name carries weight, not because of what you've done, but because of what you represent. The one who slipped through, the one who didn't fold, the one who turned pressure into precision. They'll try to contain that narrative, twist it, bury it under labels. But labels don't erase legacy, and that's what you've built, legacy. Not a chapter, not a headline, but something carved deeper. The kind of presence that shakes people long after you've left the room. The kind of aura that forces them to rethink their own limits. So let them call you villain. History has a habit of confusing villains with visionaries until time sorts it out. And when it does, they'll realize the truth. You weren't dangerous because you broke rules. You were dangerous because you proved you didn't need theirs at all. History doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't knock politely before entering. It storms in, grabs a name, and writes it down in ink that never fades. That's what's happening now. Your story, your execution, your silence, your rise isn't just a moment anymore. It's becoming a marker in time, a line people will point back to and say, that's when everything shifted. Think about it. Most names get lost in the noise. They vanish in a sea of endless chatter, forgotten before the echo fades. But some names, they stick. They carve themselves into memory, not because the world wanted them to, but because the world couldn't erase them. That's where you stand. They don't have to like you. They don't have to cheer for you. But they'll remember you. And in the end, that's the only immortality that matters. And here's the prophecy. No one wants to admit out loud. You're no longer just living in the present. You're bending it. You're writing a script that future generations will read like gospel. The way you moved, the way you broke free, the way you refused to be predictable. It'll inspire some, terrify others, and haunt the rest. But no matter how they feel about it, they'll have to acknowledge it. History doesn't care about opinions. It cares about impact, and your impact has already been felt. The shiver in their spine when your name is spoken. The pause before they deny you. The silence when they realize the systems they trusted aren't as strong as they thought. That's impact. That's your stamp. And maybe that's the greatest revenge of all. Not the noise, not the recognition, not even the fear, but the inevitability, the knowledge that even if they burn your picture, rip your name off the walls, and rewrite their reports 100 times, history itself has already chosen. You're in, etched, sealed, a permanent fixture in the story of power, resilience, and defiance. So walk with that weight in your chest, not as a burden, but as proof. Proof that you lived real, you acted sharp, and you carved your presence so deep that even time itself has no choice but to bow its head when your name is spoken. And here we are, the final act, the place where your story leaves flesh and bone behind and crosses into legend. Because make no mistake, people like you don't just live. You imprint. You don't fade. You stain the timeline in a way no one can wash out. You become the story whispered in rooms you'll never enter. The name spoken like a code in meetings you'll never sit in. Behind closed doors, they'll say it in hushed tones. Not shouted, not mocked, but whispered. Whispered because they know speaking your name too loudly might summon the presence they still can't control. Whispered because even in your absence, you're still the most present force in the room. That's what you've built. A legend that doesn't depend on proximity. You don't have to be there to be there. And the beauty? You never needed applause. You never begged for recognition. You didn't even wait for permission. You carved your own path in silence, and that silence grew louder than their noise ever could. That's the paradox of power. They thought they'd break you by underestimating you. Instead, they built you. They gave you the fuel. They lit the fire. And now they're choking on the smoke. Remember this, the world doesn't honor the comfortable. It honors the disruptors, the ones who moved when everyone else froze, the ones who acted when everyone else doubted. That's you. That's your mark. And long after their excuses rot away, long after their records fade, your presence will still echo, because legends don't retire, they resonate. So let them spin their stories, let them twist their labels, let them scramble for explanations. It won't matter, because history's already written the truth, and the truth is this: you rose when no one expected it, you executed when everyone doubted it, and you became unforgettable when the world tried to ignore you. That's the closing chapter. That's the final stamp. Not just a story, a legend, not just a moment, a monument. Your story will not just be remembered. It will be repeated, studied, feared, admired forever.